St Edward's Inclusive Education School. Because everyone matters. We'll take you through our principles and concepts and the philosophies that are ideas that theorists have created and we put into our practice to make our school inclusive.
So let's jump straight into it. What is inclusion? Inclusion means giving every child a right to education no matter what their disability. We've taken away barriers that stop them from participating fully and give them a fair and equal chance in their education too. A moral imperative of removing barriers from the school is to deconstruct and create a community that recognises and embraces difference.
So what is the purpose of education? Here are some statements from theorists. Education for a child is to help part of the development to becoming a citizen, for the child's personal growth and occupational preparation. The purpose of schooling is linked to every society's social and economic needs. Educational philosopher Sloan claimed that the purpose of education has evolved according to the needs of society. Education's primary purpose has ranged from instructing youth in religious doctrine to preparing them to live in a democracy, to assimilating immigrants into mainstream society, to preparing workers for the industrialized 20th century workplace. The main barrier that we've recognized is a concept of normalcy that create barriers for children with special educational needs, which is a label given to them. Through labeling, this can lead to a child accepting a label and teachers' attitudes and perception towards the child. We've taken away this barrier. Our school looks at inclusion from a disability perspective, which is a social model. The social model of disability breaks down the medical model to understand whether disability has been formed. Inclusion wasn't always around. It wasn't until 1978 when Mary Warnock published a report to include children with disability into mainstream schools. Children with disabilities will be statemented as special educational needs to receive and be entitled to help and support for their education. Then in 1994, the Salamanca Statement was published globally to fulfill rights of every child to education and to promote inclusive education by considering change, by adopting inclusive education to each of their country's educational policy. Inclusion of SEN children into mainstream schools became the focal point for debate. Various other educational provisions passed to help inclusion.
Now we'll explore different concepts and theories to better understand the structure of the society and how inclusion fits into it. The ecological theory of Bronfenbrenner was a scientific study of human development that broke the structure of a bigger picture on how a child develops through different layers of the system we live in. The child is in the centre of the system, and the first interaction they will have is here, with their parents, siblings, friends, neighbours, and this could be at home, nursery, school, friend's house, and Bronfenbrenner called this the microsystem, which is the child's immediate setting. The relations held and kept in that setting is called the mesosystem. Parents, workplaces, grandparents and cousins, family's culture, the media, local councils and school boards are all part of the exosystem that also affects how child develops, although they are not directly interacting. The macrosystem affects the child from a bigger scale, things like statementing of a child with SEN, the policies and the laws of the country, those who set the rules, and is fed back into the microsystem and affects the child's development. As the child develops through these different layers of the system, the child's immediate settings can also change. Through time, for example, parents having another baby, so the interaction changes between parent and child, and their new baby. This happens throughout time and is called the chrono system. The theory focuses on the interaction between the child and the different environments and settings through every layer of the system, but more importantly, what the child experiences, perceives and learns through the relations held in each of those layers. And this interaction is two-directional. Now let's look at the power-knowledge theory by Michel Foucault, who was a philosopher. Foucault addressed the relationship of power and knowledge and how it worked together to form social control over the society. He claimed that disciplinary power evolved from the 17th century when people sat together and thought of ways to assess every person around them so that they can learn and understand human differences and variations. They did this by using instruments and apparatus, then discussed what was socially acceptable by everyone, which formed the norms of the society. Those who didn't meet the norms became the problem, and people needed to be trained to sort the problems of the society. Once the knowledge was passed on to people through training, these people became professionals, and the power was transferred to them, because now they had all the knowledge. Foucault believed that power comes from what we know and knowledge comes from what we learn. That ultimately turns into power. Schools and institutions were set up for these professionals to maintain social control through normalizing judgment. Children with disabilities were separated from the mainstream schools. This is why inclusion is a subject of discourse analysis of normalizing practices that doesn't allow for diversity.
The structure of the education system is based around the medical model of disabling children through power and knowledge to create a normal society to live in, and this is why inclusion of SEN children is an exclusive debate. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this presentation informative and can use this as part of your understanding to helping us drive in our inclusive education school. Please feel free to drop into one of our Central Inclusive Workshop at St Edward's to be part of learning too. All information is provided in the handbook along with the reference list. Once again, thank you for your help and support. Rahila Chowdhury. St Edward's Inclusive Education School. Because everyone matters.